Welcome back to Kettlebells and Cocktails for a very special short CrossFit Games edition. Nikki, how are you?
I'm good. Do you remember back in the day we used to do like quote unquote news with Nikki? Like you had the podcast and I would just come on if there was like something like newsy to talk about. I feel like this is what that is.
I should have called this news with Nikki. That would have been so much better.
But then it's like, isn't every episode news with Nikki
It would have been a
technically?
throwback though. It would have been like a look. Was it Throwback Tuesday? Is that right?
Throwback Tuesday. I think that's
Throws
what the
back
kids are
Tuesday.
saying.
I think so. Anyway, well, the games finally announced the worst kept secret in all of CrossFit that we've already talked about on air a couple of times, but it looks like they've announced the break off of Masters teams and adaptive divisions from the games
Mhm.
to separate events. So that's cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I think this is something that you and I both have been saying for a long time would be one potential great way to get more eyes on all the different divisions to maybe solve some of the issues that CrossFit had cited in past seasons where people were concerned about coverage or concerned about lack of ability to follow all of the competitions all the time, lack of or concerns around the pathway to get to the games for all of the divisions and who gets to even show up and compete. Like all of those potentially could be solved, we've said, by allowing each individual division to showcase its athletes at its own competition. So we talked about it. We've been here. We're for it. That's cool. I'm glad that it's really happening.
Yeah, I don't wouldn't go as far as to say I'm for it, but I wouldn't say I'm against it either. I
Ooh,
was
okay.
Well, when it came out today, I thought to myself, like, there's gonna be a lot of hurt feelings. I'm like, why are you gonna get your feelings hurt over something that hasn't even happened yet? You know what I mean?
Good point.
Like,
Good point.
these may end up being the three greatest events CrossFit has ever put together. There may be a big steaming pile of poo. I don't know, but I'm not gonna prop them up like they're gonna be the greatest thing ever. But I'm also not gonna down talk them until it's all said and
Okay.
done.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
but
forever the optimist. I'm like, they're gonna be amazing.
they likely will in a lot of ways. I've been to 2 out of the 3 of these, and the 2 I've been to were amazing when they
Cool.
were run. Now, they weren't games level events, and they weren't run by the game, so that's a dynamic that certainly changes, but they were both terrific events, specifically the Pit Team Throwdown and the Wheelwad Games, and assuming that they continue what they've been doing, all all bets are they're gonna be pretty good. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
I have lots of questions still, none of which you'll be able to answer, by the way, because there's been there's been this big announcement, but a lot of details are still missing.
Right,
And so the biggest question I have, obviously, is probably the same thing everyone else has, is around the timing of when these events are going to take place. Like I'm very curious to understand, are the individual division seasons going to look like elite indies and teams? Like, will they have qualifiers around the same time? Will they have finals around the same time? Is it gonna be, like, 4 weekends of competitions in August? Or is now every division gonna have its own season timing? And that gets complicated further by the fact that 2 of the events, because these are existing events, right? 2 of the events are going to have their 2023 events in just a couple months. Like, the Wheelwad has its competition at the end of November, beginning of December, and then which is the other one that happens this year?
the Legends, that's
Legends.
beginning of December, yeah,
So, are these athletes in those 2 divisions gonna have, like, the back-to-back turnaround where they have to, like,
right.
compete at the end of this year, and then all of a sudden they've got, like, a late winter, or early spring open type of thing qualifier? That's what I really wanna know.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be a big deal for either one because they've always done that to some degree because
Yeah,
Wheelwad, at least the
true.
last couple of years, has been in December and Legends has been in December, and then they always roll into the Open with obviously a different final goal, in this case, of going to
That's
the
true.
games.
That's a good point.
So it's not like they've got to taper off or do whatever to get prepared. They've been doing that forever, but I agree with the point. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen with Wheelwad because they haven't lined up their games with the games in the past, and now they're gonna be the only outlet for adaptive athletes. So it'll be interesting to see if they change and make it around the same time. I would love to see it be in and around the same time, if not exactly the same timing, because I think there's a lot of beauty in that community vibe of the open. and
Mhm.
excluding the adaptive athletes from the CrossFit Open so they could do the Wheelwad Open feels weird to me.
Oh, interesting. And
I
explain.
don't know if that well, I don't know if that will happen or not, but so Wheelwad, according to the press release, is going to run the games for the adaptive athletes from the Wheelwad Open until the Wheelwad Games. So they won't be participating in the traditional CrossFit Open. At least that's my understanding of it. Now, I think that's a good thing because when you think about it in the past, you create the Open with the elites in mind, and then everybody gets scaled. And like by the time it gets down to the adaptive athletes, while they're brilliant at taking those workouts and making them into workouts adaptive athletes can do, they weren't designed for adaptive athletes. And so I think
Mhm.
Will Wad will most likely put together a much more thoughtful, open, and quarterfinals and semis and whatever for adaptive athletes and make it more realistic as opposed to just taking the workouts they've given the elites and changing them. So I think that
Mhm.
part's pretty cool. But if you've got them at different times, it feels weird to me because the open's a really special moment for a lot of people, myself included, like all of us. We've all done the open for decades now. And I think
Mhm.
that's last year, as an example, in our affiliate, we had adaptive athletes competing to try to go to the games. And they were right there next to the able bodied athletes working out. And it was a really special moment for them. Like, to be able to come in and work out side by side with elite athletes, you know, I'm putting elite in air quotes because I was one of them. But to be able to come in with the regular classes
Yeah.
and work out side by side, like if you could see the look on their face, it was priceless. And they really, really loved it and got a lot out of the open. And so I hope that they're at the same time for that reason.
Yeah, it certainly will be a different spin on the quote unquote worldwide open if it's not really
Yeah.
worldwide and inclusive of all of these different categories anymore. So that's a really interesting point timing wise. It does make me wonder from the perspective of the event organizers, like to your point, John, the athletes are used to it, right? Like if you're a legend, if you're a
Right.
masters athlete and you're used to going to this competition at the end of the year and turning around and doing the open and then having a spring quarterfinal or whatever it may be in a summer games, that's one thing. But if you're an event organizer that is used to doing your event every December, year over year over year, and you do this one and then have to turn around instantly for something halfway up the year, that's what makes me wonder, like, dang, that's a lot of work. Are
Right.
they able to do it? We've seen some really great event organizers in the past turn around big, like, semifinal type events in the freaking blink of an eye, but it takes a really special team to be able to do that, and I'm curious to know what that's like from an event organizer standpoint, and also what kind of resources CrossFit is pouring into these events,
Right.
because right now, they're great events, to your point, they're just not CrossFit Games level events, and so how are they
Right.
gonna get there? I hope it's with some support from the brand.
Well, it's funny you say that. That was the big underlying question in my mind all day. I heard everyone talking about this change, about how great it was, and I didn't hear anyone, and I mean anyone on air saying it was a negative thing, and I'm not going to either. But I was wondering, can they pull it off? Not is it a good idea? Can this be pulled off? Because to your point, you've got the normal CrossFit games that they've done, at least I believe, very well for the last several years in most aspects, with a few errors here and there. But you get these 3 independent events that have Pit Team and Will Water, great. I've heard great things about Legends, so let's just assume all 3 are terrific. Well, now you're throwing another level of complexity because you're gonna have more cooks in the kitchen coming in from CrossFit to do help with the programming or to do the programming, which they haven't done in the past. There's imagine as an example, like this year's was a good example, the budget ran out. So
Mhm,
we had the static camera at the games, right? Well, what happens when the budget runs out again? Which one of these 3 gets prioritized?
mhm,
Who knows? Like,
yeah,
there's so many questions in my mind of things that could possibly go wrong, and we just don't have any of the answers yet. It's just a big question mark to me. I don't think anyone's questioning that it's a good idea, but now I'm wondering, all right, well, what are the intimate details? Because
mhm,
which one's most important to CrossFit? And how's the money getting allocated? Like Dave said in his press release that over 50% of all the open money come from masters and age groups. Okay, well, how much of that money is going to these 3 competitions?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
is it
it's a
all
fair
going
question.
or is it all going to the leagues, which it probably will because that's the moneymaker. And so I'll be interested to see, will this improve coverage in those 3 events? Is it gonna be, "Well, go do a good job and we'll throw money at you down the road?" Like, there's a lot of question marks for me around these 4 total.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. And a similar question that I have, though not exactly the same, is sort of like, what will the level of involvement from CrossFit look like in terms of developing the competitions themselves? Like, is it going to be like a true CrossFit HQ sanctioned event where they run 80 to 90% of it and they just kind of like let these events execute? Or is it going to be like a sanctional vibe where the event really gets to put its individual spin on it and CrossFit HQ is just like in the background making sure that things jive with the overall direction of the season and the brand? That's what I'm curious to know because I think that that will influence the way that all the events are structured. And
Right,
to your point, like things like programming and things like that. So,
right.
yeah, more
Well,
questions than answers, but I'm still super optimistic about how this is going to go.
yeah, I'm even wondering where they're going to be. Like, as an example, Pit Teen Throwdown, which is at the Pit Fitness Ranch, amazing facility, amazing coaches. They do great programming. This city is tiny, Nikki.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
let me break it down for you. They're gonna have double the number of age group athletes competing that they had this year. I think that was the number, maybe even more. There's one Holiday Inn in the city.
Yeah.
One. It's like a Holiday Inn Express. Now, I stayed there during the height of the
Ugh.
pandemic, and it was a interesting experience in those days, but I'm sure it's not much better now. And this is a small little city in Michigan. I can't imagine that I could truly house a games level event with spectators. Like, it was crowded then, and we had limited spectators.
Is it Three Rivers, Michigan?
Yep.
Because that's where this one will be. They
Well,
posted on the Instagram, they were like they had posted the 4 events, and they
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
said individuals and teams were in Fort Worth, adaptive location TBA, masters location TBA, and then teens, Three Rivers, Michigan. So they're keeping
Well,
it there.
well, I'm gonna still put a question mark whether they will, but,
Okay.
if like, again, I love the facility, and I have no complaints on Pit Team Throwdown and Three Rivers, Michigan, other than the fact it's in Michigan. Um, it's sorry, I'm from Ohio. It just had to be
Yeah,
said.
yeah, you're allowed to
But,
say that.
they do a great job. It can't house a lot of people, so it's gonna have to be a great live stream, I guess is the point.
Got it.
And now Willwad has been in Raleigh, North Carolina for the last couple of years. It could stay there as far as I'm concerned. Great airport, easy to get in and out of, good food, lots of
Mhm.
barbecue. They had a
Mm,
good location last time, but who knows where they'll end up.
yeah.
So, too many questions, not enough answers.
And that's kind of part of our continuous complaint, right? Is like we just really wish for consistent and thorough transparency and communication around this type of stuff. And the more information, the better. And I understand that they might not have all the answers yet themselves. And so they're like, we should get out there with whatever we have as soon as we have it so people can start understanding and planning their season. But yes, I crave more information. I want all
Well
the details.
I guess that's the thing, like, people don't know where all this is gonna be, and particularly when you think of Masters, is it gonna be back in San Diego? Where's it gonna be? Like, people need to start. I know it may not seem super close to the games people now, but people got to take time off of work for the stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'll start giving my requests for time off for next year in, like, a month.
Yes. Yeah.
And
And if
most Masters athletes that work 9 to 5 jobs like myself, that's what your life is like when you work for
yeah.
someone else. It's just
Yeah,
tough.
I was just gonna say that, specifically with the master's group where we're talking about people who oftentimes have full-time jobs. Like, it's not crazy to start thinking about planning right now for the summer of next year, especially if you're traveling with your family and you've gotta figure out how to travel, like, 3, 4, 5 people all at once, and your kids are all over the place or whatever, like, it is absolutely not crazy to start thinking about planning for next summer right now.
Yep.
So, yeah. All
Yeah,
the young people in their 20s are listening to this being like, "What are you talking about? I
I
don't
know.
even know what I'm doing this weekend. Wait till you get old. Just wait."
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I think there's still a lot of question marks. I think, at least from the comments I saw from everyday CrossFitters, like, the quote unquote media seems to all be in line that, "Oh, this is great." The everyday people on the gram anyway, it's a mixed bag, man. Some
Yeah.
love it, some hate it. I get it though, that's the internet as it rolls anyway. I'll be interested to see as the details come out how that really shakes out. Like particularly around the adaptives, I've had a ton message me today, and some are like, "This is great. We get our own event. More of us will be able to attend. It'll be more inclusive because you'll have 15 divisions, not 8." All
Mhm.
of that's true, by the way. Very, very cool thing. Then there are others who are like, "Yeah, now we're getting kicked to the curb. We're second class citizen. We're not gonna
We're not
be
at the games,
not at
like,
the
yeah.
games." Yeah, like, and I get that feeling too. Like, I understand both sides of that coin,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up, what the event looks like. I personally believe if they can deliver on a games level experience live, even without being in Fort Worth, I think it'll be a good thing.
Yeah,
But,
I agree. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
can
there's
they? That's the question.
yeah, and there's certainly no pleasing everyone, but I'm hoping that this is putting us on a path for growth.
I hope so too. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll get more press releases as this unfolds, and we'll bring it to everyone then.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for jumping on and chatting about it for a couple minutes.
This has been News with Nikki.
Just, just like the good old days. We do have a lot more news coming. We're going to continue with the weekly buzz. We're going
Mhm.
to do some previews coming up for the Rogue Invitational. We've got Rob Kearney coming on to do a strongman preview, which I'm really excited about because I don't know squat about strongman, so he can educate
Same.
us.
Also, he's like
Yeah.
my favorite human. I'm so
Yes,
excited.
he's super fun. And then we've got 2 episodes coming out with Fran Long Analytics, where we're gonna handicap the men's division and the women's division at Rogue, and I believe they're gonna give us either the top 10 or top 5 in each category, so that should be fun.
Ooh. We're gonna get the hate mail. Can't wait. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah, I don't even know why people get so passionate. It's not like you can bet on this stuff yet,
I know. I
so,
know. Well,
all right, well, for everyone listening, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and we will talk to you guys soon.